So, tous les jours.
Uh-huh.
I just Googled it in Google Translate, and it said every day in English.
Yep.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, perfect. So, tous les jours. Oh, am I pronouncing it right?
Yeah.
Tous les jours?
Yeah.
Tous les jours opened its first location in South Korea in 1987. They came to the U.S. in 2004. They are owned by CJ Foodville. And this is a French-Asian bakery cafe that sells fresh baked goods with a mix of sort of European and Asian flavors. Tous les jours has ambitious growth plans for the U.S., and I want to talk about it. So we've got with us today Taeyun Kim from CJ Foodville USA. Live from New York, it's Where We Buy. You're listening to Where We Buy. It's the show where we talk with retail experts and we visit the places where we buy. My name is James Cook. I research retail and real estate for JLL. We're recording live from the JLL booth at ICSC New York. Tay, welcome to Where We Buy.
Thank you so much, James. Thanks for having me here.
So I always like to sample places before I talk to people, but I wasn't able to do it. I'm sorry. I haven't been to tous les jours yet.
Well, you still have an exciting experience ahead of you then.
Okay, well, tell me about it. Like, what is it like to visit tous les jours?
Well, I think as soon as you walk in, one of the things you see is just a lot of selection. So our model is to put our really delectable pastries and bread right in front of the guests. So you have this dilemma of choice, and we want folks to make a delightful choice, right? It's about bringing that joy. And so to come in, you would see freshly baked pastries, breads lying in front of you, some beautiful cake sitting in a showcase, and then baristas making some of our craft beverage options that you would have. And you just get to walk around and really pick and choose whatever strikes your fancy.
Oh, man, I love a good bakery. So it is a Korean chain with a French name. Mm-hmm. How did that come about?
Well, so a lot of the bakery tradition in Korea is rooted in the French baking culture. So I think you see this not just in Korea, but other parts of Asia where that the link is strongest to the French baking culture. And so, I think it was just our founders probably maybe spent some time in France, but I think just having that European connection, especially as we're doing some laminated pastries and things like that, I think was a clear connection.
Are your beverages, are you guys on the train of doing all the fun, crazy new Instagram drinks that are out there? Are you a part of that scene?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are doing a lot of fun things that I think are still approachable. So we were a little ahead of the matcha trend. And so we did have matcha and ube-based beverages, so really nice greens and blues in our spring menu earlier this year. And you can still find a lot of that matcha. It's really one of our top sellers. But, we were at it a little bit sooner before it really became a craze. And then we also have cloud cakes, for example, as one of our signature items. And so while, people other beverage concepts have been using the cold foam, we're having fun with it and saying it's our cloud beverage, because you get that nice fluffy foam and it ties into something else that's on our menu.
So I've known about matcha for a while, but I wasn't familiar really with ube till quite recently. I had an ube drink. It's a purple yam, is that right?
Yeah, it's a root vegetable and it's just something that can be sweetened and it adds a lot of flavor, but it also has that sort of earthiness to it. And so it's a really fun ingredient to use, not just for beverages, but also for baking.
So for tous les jours, talk a little bit about sort of the size and the design and, like the real estate, specs, if you will.
Yeah, so our ideal footprint is 3,000 square feet, give or take. And we're looking for really prominent end cap locations or inline locations. I think we're unique in that we'll take inline locations as well. And we are a franchise-driven company. And so our growth is really with our franchise partners, although we are now working on developing some corporate stores around the country. As I mentioned, this cloud cake, that is a signature menu item of ours. And when you walk into our cafes, our bakery cafes rather, what you're going to feel is this light, delightful kind of environment. We use a lot of lighter colors, sort of muted pastels as well that have a warm feeling. And so we want folks to not just feel the warmth from the baking, but to really come in and find a really inviting a third place location where folks can sit down. We love seeing people sitting down with friends and family and coworkers, and being having really great conversations over a wonderful baked good and a wonderful beverage.
Oh my gosh. I love a wonderful baked good and a wonderful beverage. And it's funny because I went to a place, which I will not name on this show, yesterday for a baked good and beverage, and they were not good. And so the quality is so important. How many locations do you currently have in the U.S.?
Yeah, so we're rapidly opening, and we're at year end. And I think people in the industry know what that means. What that means. We're trying to open every store we can. So we're on 180 something right now as of this recording.
And what markets are you in and expanding into?
So we're currently in 31 states.
Oh, wow.
We're hoping to add that to 32. Our Honolulu store is rapidly being finished to help us hopefully open that this year. But we're, as I said, 31 states with 180 some stores. We have some diversity, right? We have some disbursement of where we are. We're in everywhere from Huntsville, Alabama, to here in New York City and LA, and sort of every point in between. Our focus is on, the really high growth markets, especially those where we feel like we're underpenetrated. So Texas as a whole is a key market for us. We just made the decision to open up Dallas for corporate store development in addition to franchise development. And a major market for us. Atlanta is very important to us, not just because of our Tous Jours retail presence, but we made a huge investment in a state-of-the-art production facility in Gainesville, Georgia, just outside of Atlanta, where we are going to be making some of the ingredients and the raw ingredients that our bakers then use to produce our finished baked goods. So another key market for us over there. And we are days away from opening our first corporate store here in Manhattan.
Ooh.
And so New York City is an important market for us as well. I mean, I want to say the entire U.S. is important to us. It's just going to take us a little more time to get to some than others.
Where in Manhattan are you going?
23rd, right across from Madison Square Park. And so we just had that tree lighting event earlier this week, and we were the hot chocolate sponsors.
Awesome. Wow, that's great. What a great location and a great time. We're talking in the holiday season in December. It's a great time for that. I mentioned Tous Jours has been in the U.S. since 2004. Are you in a much faster growth mode now than you were at the beginning, or has the pace changed recently?
The pace has definitely changed. We're very much in that upswing of the hockey puck. And so I joined the company a year and a half ago. I'm the first chief development officer for the company. We do have ambitious goals to get to 1,000 stores by 2030. So you think about where we are today here at the end of 2025. And so, yes, the development is accelerating exponentially. We spent the past year and a half really trying to lay down foundation that will help us to be able to accelerate at that rate. Obviously, a lot of things have to move very rapidly, all in lockstep. And so we're putting those pieces together. So one of the phrases that I like to use that really applies to us is we are literally building the plane as we're flying it.
I'm sitting here doing the math in my head. See, that means you need to do what, like about 800 stores in 5 years? Mm-hmm. I mean, that's doable, but that's a lot.
Yeah, very aggressive.
And finding the space is the challenge now because you're competing with a lot of other concepts for similar space. How have you found that competition?
Well, I love competition, so I think that's always great. And, we have friends who are competitors and competitors who become friends. So I see all of this as just general growth for the overall industry, that there are so many great brands out there, right, that are viable and thriving. It's hard for us, though, I would say. We are playing in some of the more challenging or the most dynamic categories. So we do serve craft coffee. And, you can argue that coffee is one of the hottest spaces right now. And so there are uses and use exclusives that we have to be mindful of. And then also, grocery stores are really doubling down on their bakeries as well. So I do definitely see that as sometimes they embrace us as a co-tenant and sometimes grocery stores can restrict us. So we're very mindful of that as well. But I think, and on the other side, unfortunately, a lot of neighborhood bakeries are no longer with us. So the idea of having a place where you can go and really claiming that as your neighborhood baked goods, where you would go bring your family for a treat or pick up treats for your coworkers. Unfortunately, a lot of that has really gone by the wayside in the past couple of decades. So in some ways, we're bringing back into communities something that I think was needed and is still needed, and trying to fill that gap. So I'm hopeful that people will see that vision with us, that, people just have that I think, innate need to have some good food to gather over, right? And it's also comfort food. So I do think that there is a need, and that we're able to meet that need.
There's two trends that are like racing simultaneously. One is getting you the product as fast as possible with as little friction, the small footprint drive-through coffee places. And then you've got folks like Tous, and I know Starbucks too is trying to go back to being the third place again. Is everybody right, or are those fast people wrong? What is your take on that? Who's going to win this one, the fast or the slow?
Well, I think that, there are occasions, right? So if you are rushing to get someplace, you want to move fast. But there are times when you want to slow down and you're looking for a place like Tous to be a place where you're resting. And so I think our operations format lends to sort of being everything to all people. So, a lot of our baked goods are ready to go. And so folks can just come in. If they know what they want, they can zone right in on that particular, bread or pastry, pick that up, pay for it and be out on their way. And if they want to really linger and enjoy something, they could get a slice of cake or, have one of our pastries warmed up for them and sit down to really enjoy that.
Do you have a sense of what percentage are takeaway?
Yeah, so we are still primarily a takeaway. Part of that's also driven really by the fact that our whole cakes are really a key part of our offering. And while I've seen a lot of people enjoying a lot of things in our stores, I have not seen anyone actually buy a whole cake and eat it on the premises.
I could do it. Do you want me to do it, Tay? I'll do it.
I think this could be a challenge that we could try to do after this recording.
I'll eat as much as much as I can on site, and then take away the rest. So, what percentage of what you're selling is being made in the store?
So this sort of depends a little bit, right?
Okay.
So, and also I think people have an idea of what does it mean for something to be made. So, as I mentioned, we are a franchise-based company. I think one of the reasons why a lot of these neighborhood bakeries went away is because it is a very labor-intensive, very craft industry to be in. So one of the things we do to help with product consistency and also help our operating partners is that we provide them with raw dough. So that they get a leg up to start, right? So raw dough is something that then they have to form and bake. So that those items are being baked, fresh every day. At the same time, we also want to smooth out operation. So we bring them products that can be really easily executed and just thrown into an oven and finished off. So there is baking happening inside of our stores, but it's I just want to be really clear. It's not like we're asking our operating partners to start off with flour and butter and create consistently every day across all of their employees and throughout all of our systems the exact same product every day.
Gotcha. So consistency. That sounds like a great balance because, man, you don't want to go to a bakery where they're not baking, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And man, I love the smells of the warmth of a real bakery. So that's fantastic. So talk a little bit about your background. What led you to this?
Yeah. So what led me to this was actually an interest in real estate. I've been working in the restaurant space the whole time I've been in the real estate industry, but just a really interest in real estate that came about from a class I took in business school.
Oh, wow.
And so
where'd you go to business school?
I went to UCLA, Anderson.
Awesome. Yeah.
And so I took a class based on having had a great experience with the professor teaching another class that I took. And so I thought, what else can I take with this professor? Went into the real estate class and really enjoyed it. Didn't really see a clear tie-in of how I can make that jump though. So I knew I enjoyed it. But then as I was looking for where am I going to land after business school, one of the opportunities that just popped up was Panda Restaurant Group, which is the parent company of Panda Express, ran their one and only real estate rep training program, where they brought in people without industry experience, but having other professional and academic experience into the program. So it was a really structured, multi-month program where I learned, closely mentored by a fellow deal maker, but also all of the functional areas, so legal, construction, facilities, operations, and really got a chance to dig in and be taught how to look at restaurant deal making. So that's really where I cut my teeth. And I tell the team there, and I had the opportunity to tell the chairman that I use the things that I learned through that program almost every day, even today, many years later. So that was the way I got into the industry. I've worked with a couple other brands since. So Argo Tea was a tea cafe concept based out of Chicago with some presence here in New York. They were doing some really cool things with tea and craft tea. It's a brand that didn't fully survive through the pandemic, but I was a regular customer of Argo Tea and really was able to join them at a time when they were trying to propel some dynamic growth. From there, I went to a concept called Wow Bao, which is a fast casual Asian.
Wow Bao. Yes, I do know them. Yeah.
Yeah, so a concept created out of Let Us Entertain You Enterprises, a restaurant group in Chicago. And again, they were really positioned to really do, to propel for dynamic growth. Pandemic hit. And then...
Didn't they do like ghost kitchens with partners or something?
Yeah, so, in fall 2019, our CEO, Jeff Alexander, had this idea of why couldn't every kitchen be serving Wow Bao products? Why couldn't any kitchen do this? And so we had actually started to lay the groundwork for a shared kitchen, ghost kitchen. We called it a dark kitchen program. And in 2019, as we're framing this up, talking to folks, people said, okay, that's an interesting idea, but maybe not now, or maybe I don't really see the business need. Then the world shut down during the pandemic, and I got to be part of the juggernaut that was opening over 700 dark kitchens across the country in 2 years.
At the time, I was a researcher, and this was a really interesting trend. Were you partnering with specific chains that were being basically your ghost kitchens?
Yes, yeah. So, the reason why we called it the Dark Kitchen program was because our thought was there's a corner in your kitchen that is being underutilized and sitting dark, and we can take that little corner and turn that into a production capability, right, to crank out the signature menu items. And so a lot of restaurant companies, branded companies, wanted to partner with us throughout this pandemic because, they still had to pay their fixed costs of rent and also want to keep as many of their employees on board as possible. So our thought was, with very minimal investment, very rapid time to go live, that we can add a revenue stream that can help some of these restaurants stay open. And I think I'm really proud of the work that we did and the way that we were able to make a contribution to the broader industry.
But now coming out after the pandemic, a lot of that type of thing has probably slowed down, I would imagine.
Yeah, it has. And as the world sort of opened back up, I really had the itch to get back into brick and mortar store development. And that's how I landed here at CJ Foodville developing the Tous Jours brand.
So some folks have probably heard of Tous Jours, but many probably don't know about CJ Foodville. So outside of the U.S., do they operate different brands?
Yeah, so there are a number of different restaurant brands. So especially in the home market of Korea, we have everything from steakhouses to noodle houses or noodle bars and other types of cuisine that sort of go everywhere in between. And so it's a more diversified portfolio there, but still, even in Korea, the largest component of the brand portfolio is comprised of Tous Jours bakery cafes.
So is there a chance that you'll bring other CJ concepts to the U.S. at some point?
Yeah, so right now there is a very strong desire from our company to help bring Korean food to the world. And our first foray into that was with the bakery cafe concept. But we are having active conversations all the time of how can we bring Korean food. I think it helps us that anything Korean is sort of hot right now, right? There's the K-pop and there's the K-beauty. But really the K-food is where we see a lot of opportunity. And I think, Korean food is out there, but we would love the opportunity to be able to put our own stamp on how Korean food, goes out to the world and in particular to the U.S. So conversations are happening. I don't have concrete details yet, but it is definitely part of the conversation.
That's so cool. And you're so right. Now is the moment for Korean. It seems like Korean culture in the US, obviously it's been around forever, but apparently most people in the US are now discovering it, or it's hit this mass thing with, music and food and fashion and beauty kind of all at once. It's a wonderful time. How are you doing anything marketing wise at Tous Jours to take advantage of that? I don't know, a K-pop drink partnership or something. I don't know, anything like that.
Yeah, and we have a lot of conversations right now about do people know that we're a Korean bakery? Do they know about that heritage? And talking about how we want to convey that to our guests. We have items that are very Korean. So, whether it is the red bean buns, which I know sort of many Asian cultures have red bean buns, but we do our own take on that. Where there are some really nice donut items that we have that are very, what I consider to be, our sweet rice donuts, also with red bean inside. My personal favorite is what's called soboro. So it is a peanut crumble on top of a soft sweet bun. And so these items, I think, are very uniquely Korean, or something that we can really claim as being truly, authentically Korean. And we have those offerings in our bakeries right now.
So it seems like it's a good mix, because you go into a market that maybe folks are just excited to have a bakery, and then another market where diners are more sophisticated about Korean food, then they're going to recognize, the special, Korean elements to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I forgot to mention our kimchi croquette, which is delightful.
Really?
And so, you think about something that's very Korean.
So that's savory, though,
It
right?
is savory.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, is there anything kimchi that's sweet? And is that a thing that happens?
Actually, a lot of kimchi dishes are made adding sweetener to help sort of take the bite out of the spice.
Okay.
And so you may or may not realize that as you're having some of these kimchi, like cooked kimchi items at restaurants, that there might be a little bit of sugar already added, but it's more of an enhancer than it is to make it sweet.
Right. So it's not like there's a kimchi dessert out there.
Not that I know of, but maybe we can come up with one.
I would try it. Sure. So mostly franchise operated. How involved are you with corporate in things like real estate and site selection with your franchise operators?
So we're very involved because we do have to approve the site. And this is a muscle that we're growing with our franchise partners. Our franchisees have a range of experience. For some of them, this is their first time opening a restaurant. For others, this is very much a part of their day-to-day. So we try to meet the franchisees where they are and walk them through the process as they need to. One of the things I've done since I've come on board is to start to build our network of preferred brokers. And the preferred brokers act as not just a consultant to us for our overall development, but then also work closely with our franchisees as well. So more and more preferred brokers in our markets. And then also we just brought on a new head of real estate, or first ever head of real estate for our company, and really digging into the market planning so we could be much more advisory in the way that we work with our franchisees.
What is the biggest challenge to operating a franchise chain? Is it easier, more difficult? Like, what's your take?
So this, again, I'm sorry, so many of my answers are it depends.
Yeah.
It depends, I think, on the sort of the nature of the person. So there are some folks who really want to be entrepreneurial, and that drives folks to franchising, right? But entrepreneurial and wanting to have control over everything sometimes means, well, maybe maybe an operator might want to do things outside of brand standards. And so I think with franchising, there are sort of the pros if you get a system, but there are what can be perceived as potential cons if you operate a system. And so it's sort of where do people balance out on that? So I think in terms of, is it more difficult or less difficult to do a franchise versus your own? We do have some partners who ran their own bakeries, and they came to us and said, it just got too difficult to do the product development, keeping up with all the trends and the consumer needs, and to do all of that myself while I'm operating and running the business. And so we do have a number of people who decided they wanted to be running a bakery, but they're better able to excel in operating rather than developing and innovating. And so I think that maybe is a good way to understand sort of where people need to be in the range of the way they operate as a business person to say who might feel most comfortable being a franchisee.
So you're on top of the innovation. How often do you roll out new menu items?
Actually, quite frequently. So, we go with the seasons and, especially from the cakes being a celebratory item. So, we are constantly rolling out different cakes for the different seasons. Where we are today, I could talk about, our holiday cakes this year are a Sanrio collaboration.
No way.
So we have 3 different Sanrio cakes that we're featuring on our holiday cakes. So we want to go with the seasons, and that does flow in through all of our items as well. So constantly innovating, but there are also bakery trends. So one of the items we have now as a core menu, which I don't know if a lot of folks in the U.S. knew about, is salt bread.
No.
Was a huge trend in Korea. It was very, we thought maybe a fad, but it actually has stayed, and it is one of our sort of differentiated product offerings here in the U.S. But we want to test and be on par with things like that, so that then if it really clicks with our core audience or our core customer base, that we make that a part of our main everyday menu.
So salt bread, is it just bread with salt on it?
And a lot of butter, actually.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Oh, Tay, this is right up my alley. Oh my gosh. This is like what I would make at home, is just lots of butter on a good slice of bread. And I can see like sprinkling a little bit of good salt on top of it.
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, no, that's not a trend. That's here to stay. Is there your kitchen that develops these new items? Is that in Korea or is that here in the U.S.?
Both.
Okay.
So we have a sizable R&D team in Korea that supports us, because our brand is based in Korea. But we also have a great R&D team here in the U.S. Food tastes do differ, and ingredient availability is different. And even as we're talking about, LTOs or seasonality, we have different holidays here too, right? So having that kind of collaboration of having boots on the ground here is really important to us as well.
I would imagine there are items that just take off in South Korea, and here in the U.S., people don't get it, and vice versa, right?
I think your reaction to the salt bread is something where I think the average consumer in Korea now, it's such a mainstream thing to have salt bread, and it's still new to the U.S. So we have also this benefit of some things that might be sort of commonplace in one of our markets might be really exciting to another one of the markets that we have as we introduce that.
Yeah. So I want to circle back. You kind of mentioned this. You've got a new production facility in Gainesville, Georgia, where you're making ingredients. How does that help fuel your big growth plans? Like, tell me a little bit more about what you're doing there and how that works.
Yeah, so, as we're supplying ingredients to our franchisees, stability of the supply chain is important. And also, we've really made a commitment to the U.S. market. And so it behooves us to have not just stability, but also to make this deep dive investment into the U.S. market. So with the Gainesville facility, I think we all went through this, in COVID, where the supply chain routes just shut down. Yeah. I know, and from time to time, we hear about these potential, labor strikes or such, at the ports. And as much as I support all of those workers, and what they're trying to accomplish, we are also concerned about, if we have everything coming in from abroad, we are in a more vulnerable position. So this facility in Georgia will help us to be able to really smooth out our supply chain. Also allow us to do some of this innovation here as well, because there are some things that we're dependent on, some of the production capabilities in Asia, but we're going to start to bring a lot more of that here to the U.S. And I think another key point is this is the first of its kind. We are already talking about, how many more facilities and what would be the right timing to trigger to make investments in our supply chain, whether it's production or logistics, to really help support the growth that we have across the country.
What types of things do you have to produce here that you can't, just buy, on the market?
Yeah, so this raw dough is really, it's custom to us. It is a big part of our critical, competitive advantage. So that's something that we would be producing here. And I think, having this production facility here is going to give us a little more leeway to respond to trends faster, but then also respond to variations in demand faster.
Well, all I know, Tay, is that I'm very sad that I have not yet been to Jours because, everything you've described gets me really excited. I think a lot of our listeners are really excited to hear about your aggressive expansion plans. A lot of them are in the retail real estate industry, and they probably will now want to talk to you about being a tenant in one of their properties. So this has been a fascinating conversation. I just want to thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure to be here and to continue talking with you.
Awesome. And if you want to hear more interviews, audio retail tours, and new research insights, you can subscribe to Where We Buy on the iPhone podcast app or Spotify, or really wherever you get your podcasts, you can find us. And we're also on the web at wherewebuy.show. All right, that's a wrap.